We look at very interesting issues playing out in Nigeria. And the biggest of them all is the very sad occurrence that played out on Sunday in the Tudun Biri community in the Igabi area council of Kaduna State, where over 85 persons were allegedly killed by the drone strike of Nigeria's military, talking about the Nigerian army, and that has led the president of Nigeria, Ahmed Bola Tinubu, ordering a probe as to what went wrong. The interesting issue about it is that we had conflicting casualty figures after that very sad episode, where it was rumored that 50 persons were killed. Meanwhile, Amnesty International did raise objection to say it was more than 50 people that were killed. And fast forward, after 24 hours after that particular, 24 to 48 hours afterwards, we had the Nigerian army coming out to own up to the responsibility of carrying out that very deadly mistake where 85 Nigerians were allegedly killed, villagers. Also, it goes to talk about the issue of human rights abuse, which the Nigerian army has consistently been accused of. Remember that occurred. That was one of the reasons that made the U.S. refuse to sell arms to the Nigerian army when it was time for us to procure some war equipment to fight the Boko Haram incident. But our heart goes out to the people who lost their lives, their families, and especially the people and government of Kaduna State. All right, we'll be looking at that issue when at the 9 o'clock hour, where we'll be speaking to a professional, security professional, who will be giving us more insight as regards to what went wrong. But now, first of all, as usual, we'll be looking at the big stories making the rounds in Nigeria's national daily. We'll go for a very quick break. When we return from the break, we'll be looking at all the big stories from The Punch and other national dailies in Stay With Us. Right, welcome back from the break. You're watching Global Morning, and it's now time for us to look at the big stories making the rounds. We'll begin with the Punch newspaper. By the way, we've got someone who is going to help us look at this big story from the legal perspective. We will be having Ocha Emmanuel, who will be joining us via Zoom to help us look at the very big stories making the rounds. We'll begin with the Punch newspaper. First, the screen headline there, very sad one, says, death toll hits 120. Villagers alleged military bombed twice. That's a very sad one. Death toll hits 120. Villagers alleged military bombed twice. Is the big headline story there. One family loses 32 members. Culprit must be punished. Survivors, ACF, JNI tell military. And we've got Army Chief begs victims, says soldiers mistook villagers for bandits. Tinubu, Atiku, mourn. Headline story, death toll hits 120. Villagers allege that military bombed twice. Is the big headline story there from the Punch newspaper. You can see the picture story of a little girl with a bandage on her forehead, obviously bleeding. Very sad commentary there. And the other headline story says over 9,000 civil servants fail promotion exams. Over 9,000 civil servants fail promotion exams. We've got a truck crushes woman amid Lagos police Okada riders clash. Truck crushes woman amid Lagos police Okada riders clash is one very sad story there. Cabal running Akeredolu's government, stealing funds is the headline story there. That's the PDP alleging that a cabal is running Akeredolu's government in Ondo State, and they are stealing funds. You find that story only on the Punch newspaper. Other headlines, we've got the headlines there says, auction is a rider, presidential aircraft bidders get December 24th deadline. Auction is a rider, presidential aircraft bidders get December 24th deadline. You find that story only on page 27 of the Punch newspaper. Federal government seeks 35 billion naira to revive Ajaokuta Steel. Federal government seeks 35 billion naira to revive Ajaokuta Steel is the headline story there on page 20. And we've got a Power Finance Ministry gets 618 billion naira loan. CSO's kick is the headline story there. All right, let's join Oche Emmanuel so that let's get his take on some of this headline story from the Punch. Good morning, Oche Emmanuel.
Good morning, Mr. Tony. Good morning, Nigerians.
Okay, nice to have you join us. Let's look at some of the headline stories here. One of them says, death toll hit 120. Villagers allege that the military bombed twice, talking about the Tudunbiri village where allegedly the drone attack by the military have left 120 villagers dead. For you, this is one too many. Record shows us we've had 14 episodes of this same accidental killing by the Nigerian military. What does this tell us as regards how well or how prepared or how professional our military is?
Well, first of all, let me commiserate with those who lost their life in this incident. It's a very unfortunate situation. This is one too many. It goes to say how well trained, the level of training that our military has. It simply means that we need to rejig the military and ensure that our counter-terrorism measures are properly in line with international best practices. We can't continue to record this kind of collateral damage, killing innocent civilians and destroying means of livelihood. That is not what the fight against insurgents should bring to Nigeria. The military should have a way of picking out some of these criminals without necessarily killing innocent civilians and destroying means of livelihood and maiming and doing all manner of unholy criminal things against civilians. In Nasarawa State only recently, same thing happened, where a bomb was thrown and many innocent civilians were killed. We can't say the number of people that have been killed innocently in Borno State. I mean, this sort of things shouldn't have been happening in this era, where the military has fought well enough for a long time to know how to counter terrorism without necessarily incurring this sort of collateral damage. It's a very unfortunate situation, and we shouldn't even allow things like this to happen again. It's a sad commentary on the national intelligence of our military.
Let's look at the fact the villagers of Tudunbiri allege that the military did bomb them twice. So if the first one was a mistake, why repeat it the second time? Do you think there's something fishy?
Well, for me, I think the military will have to rise to the occasion and tell us why they have to do the second time. It is possible that during airstrike, it's also possible that they might be seeing things differently from those who are on the land. But that is not an excuse. In any way, it's not an excuse. You did it once, you did it the second time. And the most painful aspect of it is that the military have opted now not own up to tender apology to the community and the families. It simply shows that
the military shows that. Okay, I'm saying the military has owned up. They've taken responsibility.
Yes, the first statement that came up, they have, but they technically accepted it. They have not openly come up to say, look, we are sorry for what happened, and we intend, and what is going to be the remedial tactics they will adopt in this whole thing? What are they going to do for the family as a way of cushioning the effect on them. If you recall, when this incident happened, one of the generals in the site of incident came up and made a statement that was totally different from what the defense headquarters said. But as civil organizations and international organizations begin to prevail on them, they came up to own up. And owning up is not just saying we are the cause of it. What are they going to do to mitigate the effect of these pains on the community and the villagers and even the bereaved families? These are the things we should be looking at. They don't just own up and then leave them to remain on their own.
Casualty figures always been doctored. Initially, we were told over 50 Nigerians were killed, but Amnesty International did come out to say it is 120 villagers that were killed, and also the issue of human rights abuses. Does this justify what Amnesty International has always said about the Nigerian army?
Of course, it does. It does. The figures are always doctored. I don't know why they are in a hurry to deny what they have done. Primarily, maybe they believe that, owning up totally to what has happened will lead to anger and all sorts of national outcry from Nigerians. But then, if you must own up totally, not a partial owning up. It simply confirms the fact that Amnesty International is always very correct on the reports they give about the military. We're talking about human lives here, not animals. Even animals, they have some rights. We're talking about human beings here. And if you continue to kill in this manner, we'll wake up one day and find out that those who are supposed to be leaders of this country would have been wiped out by the negligence and recklessness of the military. And they shouldn't be. If you are going to curb terrorism, it shouldn't be at the expense of innocent civilians.
This talking point, what is your expectation in terms of the president has ordered for a probe into this matter? We know the military and the security agencies, they're very good on kind to their own. Do you expect some persons either losing their jobs, or what's your expectation?
Nobody is going to lose their job. They are very protective of their actions. They are very, very protective of their actions. They are going to keep themselves and make it look like it's one of those many professional negligence that we have experienced in this country. And of course, if there's going to be such probe, it shouldn't be a government probe. It should have been an independent probe. There should be an independent panel, different from government officials who will probe this incident. But I can assure you, Mr. Tony, that as usual, we are going to go the normal way. Nobody is going to lose his or her job. You know, the system protects their actions. The system protects itself. The military are going to protect themselves. This is very worrisome. It's very annoying. Father Matthew Kuka has spoken a lot about this. Many people who have been very outspoken on this issue, and they have tagged them as enemy of the state. And this is not very good, because we are talking about human life here. If the military are not professional enough to do this, they should seek assistance from somewhere. This is very annoying. Because if you think it is not painful because it's not affecting you today, who knows? Who knows? Who knows? Tomorrow it might be next to you. You know, so Nigerians have to rise to the occasion and condemn this act of recklessness and lack of professionalism on the side of the military. It is not good. In fact, it's a big dent on the national capacity of our military to curb terrorism and insurgency in the country.
Very sad commentary there. All right, let's look at other big stories from the Punch newspaper. Federal government needs 35 billion naira to revitalize and revive Ajaokuta Steel, and also 9,000 civil servants fail promotion exams. What's your take on these two issues?
Well, for Ajaokuta Steel Rolling Mill, it has become a cash cow. Every government that comes, appropriate money there, borrow money to repair, borrow money to revitalize, borrow money to do whatever. They have carved a semantic and a nomenclature to enable them continue to embezzle money in the name of revitalizing Ajaokuta Steel Rolling Mill. What we have in Ajaokuta would have been enough if government had done what they needed to do. Buhari came. So much billions was earmarked. Jonathan did the same thing. We are in Tinubu, same thing is going on. It's a merry-go-round. And they are looking at how they can continue to frizzle our money through that pipe. It's a very unfortunate thing. Ajaokuta is lying there doing nothing. And that would have been a company that would have created jobs, chain of jobs for a lot of Nigerians. I don't believe in what Tinubu is saying. I don't believe that money is going to be spent to revitalize. It is one of those many appropriations that will be diverted to some other thing. So for me, it's a normal thing for us to hear that, and there should not be any much expectation from them. For the civil servants, I'm happy that They are, first of all, even subjected to writing exams. It shows that they have to now sit up. For those of them that have failed, if that is a condition sine qua non to promotion, then they will not be promoted. Next time they should sit for it, get more serious, and pass. If they don't, then they will be edged out, because we have thousands, hundreds of graduates who are on the street who don't have jobs. They should allow them to come in with hot brain so that they can pass the exams and work. So for me, I'm happy that civil servants are subjected to this manner of exams. And I think I thumb up for the head of service who is doing this properly.
All right, let's just take before we go to the next paper, let's look at the issue playing out in Ondo State, where the PDP is alleging that a cabal is running the Rotimi Akeredolu's government. We had Lucky Ayedatiwa, who is the deputy governor, also had complained in the past as regards not being able to run the affairs of the state as demanded by the doctrine of necessity. Let's look at what's playing out in Ondo State. What's your take on it?
Well, for me, let me start from what you meant by doctrine of necessity. That doctrine of necessity was coined out by David Mark in the era of Yaradua and Jonathan to cure the incident of that time. And I'm happy it actually cured that situation. Well, those states, Akeredolu has not been pronounced incapable of leading the state. Yes, he's sick. Every human being at a time will definitely fall sick. The House of Assembly has not impeached him, and he still has the capacity from what we see. So if there is such claim that documents are being forged, I've also read a rejoinder from the government that there's nothing to say to confirm that. The DSS is there. They should petition to the DSS. They should petition to other government intelligence units to investigate that. I'm not sure that it is that easy for people to forge documents and then run a kind of pariah system within a state. The state can run itself even without the governor, mind you. Even if the governor is not in the state has the capacity to run. So it's a system that can run itself. And the deputy governor should wait.
Do you think he's been ambitious? Do you think the deputy governor is being ambitious, or he's simply wanting to play by what the Constitution says?
No, the Constitution did not say he should become the deputy governor when the governor is sick. The Constitution says he can become
the acting governor.
Acting governor or whatever when the governor is sick. The Constitution simply says when he's incapable, when he has been declared incapable. Incapability could be as a result of sickness. Yes, the governor is sick, but he has not been declared incapable. So this is what the Constitution said. For me, I think the deputy governor is trying to overreach his responsibility, and they should not unnecessarily hit the polity in that state. If God has destined him to become the governor, why not? He will. And if Akeredolu on his own finds that he cannot perform the duties of the governor, he can on his own, sumo motu, declare himself incapable. But as far as medically, he has not been declared incapable. He remains the governor because that's an elected official. So for me, the hula baloo going on in that state is unnecessary. It's unnecessary.
All right, let's quickly look at the leadership newspaper. Some big stories there says ASU laments exodus of lecturers from public universities. Federal government to prosecute gender-based violence in schools. And we've got a COP28 minister and NPC recommit to lowering methane emissions. Let's quickly look at, first of all, ASU laments exodus of lecturers from public universities. What's your take? How do you think this is going to affect the grooming of future leaders of Nigeria?
For me, that's brain drain. What's happening there is a dangerous trend. And if the federal government does not bring up any palliative or incentives to keep our lecturers in the university, and it continues in this matter, a time will come when you will not have capable hands teaching our students. And that will be a very big disaster for us in future. Because every country is as good as the intellectuals they churn out from the university. We are seeing the same thing happening in the medical profession, in the engineering profession. Many Nigerians are leaving the country with this so-called Japa syndrome. And if this continues and it's not discouraged, then we'll come to a time where there will be a bag that will be named after Nigeria must go, because we now have what they call Ghana must go. We all know the history of how that bag was named. Now the federal government said they should not even use that bag in the airport anymore. Today, we are having Nigerians going out elsewhere. They are going to park themselves somewhere, and the time will come where the country will say, in South Africa it's happening. They are going to name a bag or a car, Nigeria must go. And then they will pack Nigerians into that car and send them to the airport and deport them to Nigeria, the way we try to do to Ghana, and we name a bag after that. It's a very sad commentary on our leadership style. ASUU should be encouraged. ASUU should be given all that they require to pay. I mean, we are talking about turning out generations of leaders. We're talking about intellectual manpower of a country. We are talking about institutions that have the capacity of sustaining a nation. And you are joking with those people who are teaching in those schools. It's a very sad issue. It's a very sad issue. ASUU should not be every year, in fact, every month, ASUU threatens to go on strike. Every other year, ASUU must go on strike. Strike has become a very common decimal factor for ASUU. Strike now is not even seen as any effective thing from ASUU anymore. It is not fair. They shouldn't even be talking about their packages. Federal government should do anything possible to keep them. This is a very, very sad issue in this country.
All right, before we let you go, let's look at the COP28 going on currently. We've got Minister NPC recommit to lowering methane emissions. Would you say Nigeria has been true to its words in terms of commitment, the treaties they've signed, the pacts they've signed on the international level, coming back home? Would you say they've kept to those treaties and commitments?
Well, when you sign a treaty with other countries, are expected to keep to it, because there might be monitoring teams to ensure that these treaties are adhered to. In our case, we have not been very fair to keeping to our treaties. We have always choose and pick the ones we want to keep to, and then do it in a manner that suits the Nigerian factor. In the situation we're talking about, it's a thing that affects the entire world, and the world is a global village. So I think other countries who are signatories to these treaties are going to ensure that they monitor the level of performance of Nigeria. And where this is not done, they reserve the right to call Nigeria into question and draw their attention to it. I think we have to change our attitude towards this, our inability to adhere to treaties, yes.
All right, still on that matter, the coordinating minister of Finance, Wale Edun, has said Nigeria is eyeing the multi-trillion-dollar climate change financing. Do you think Nigeria is big on this COP28 because of the financial benefits around it? And are you convinced that if these monies do come to Africa, Nigeria would use their money judiciously, especially tackling erosions, flooding, and other natural disasters facing Nigeria in terms of what climate change effect should be used for?
Well, because climate change is a big discourse all over the world, I think it's not a thing that Nigeria will have to play with if the financial assistance is given. Don't forget that there might be consultants appointed for the purposes of ensuring that the rights that we don't get it done the way it should be done. I'm hoping that this time around, once that assistance is given, we'll be able to channel it proper way. I'm hopeful. I'm really very positive-minded about Nigeria's ability to do the right thing. However, we should know that there are a lot of big brothers in these treaties, and they are not going to allow Nigeria to be the clog on the wheel of this progress.
All right, thank you. Is the writer for Daily Trust. Tinubu Shetima's trips meals to GOP 10 billion naira as villas animals get 201 million naira. Court orders execution of others demand compensation for the villagers that were killed. Quickly, let's run through this. 2024 Tinubu Shetima's trips meals GOP 10 billion naira as villas animals get 201 million naira. Quickly, Emmanuel, what's your take on that? Hello.
It's a funny country, Mr. Tony. Can you hear me, please?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, right. It's a funny country. Just imagine the headline. Imagine the budget. Imagine what Tinubu and Co are going to spend on what I'll barely describe as frivolities, because their travel abroad. How often have other countries' presidents visited Nigeria? I mean, what are they spending all this money on Jamboree for? But, well, they inherited a staggered situation. They inherited a situation that encourages such, and so they are trying to follow suit. It's very unfortunate. And then for the northern, for the northern Nigerian people who are requesting for compensation for the military, it is their right to request for this compensation. It is their right to request for compensation from military because the military has not shown
Can they sue
professionalism
the
at all.
military? Can they sue the military if they don't compensate them? Can they sue the military?
Sue the military because you can't kill innocent citizens. These are people that have life. These are people whose rights are protected by in Chapter 4 of the 1999 Constitution as amended. They can sue the military and get compensated. The military should discharge their responsibility responsibly and professionally. You know, because if you allow people to begin to talk, sometimes when you want to take actions of this nature, you find people coming to beg you. If you kowtow to their boho, you allow other generations to suffer. So for the Northerners, I encourage them. They should not kowtow. They should not give up. They should go ahead and press for their compensation. And if they are not compensated adequately, the court is there for them to seek a redress.
All right, thank you very much. That has been fantastic. Ocha, always a pleasure having you on the program. Thank you for your very incisive and very stern analysis of all the big stories making the rounds. You're watching Africa's finest breakfast show, Global Morning on Global Television. We'll go for a quick break. When we return, we'll be still focusing on the sad episode that played out in the Tudunbiri community in Igabi Area Council. This time we'll be talking to a security expert who will be giving us a clean view as regards what went wrong and what should be done going forward to avert such very ugly incidences. Stay with us after this break.
Welcome to Global Morning.
Death toll from flooding.
Most time our politicians just bring in policies too, for sure.
Incidentally, we have several more stories.
The legislature was carefully crafted to
22.2% inflation rate as of April this year. What does that say about where we are as a country?
I think Nigeria has resorted to being resilient.
Before you call a police station, before they even leave, they'll take permission from.
I don't think there's really anything on ground to improve.
We struggled as a strike.
The Minister of Education volunteered and said, give me 2 weeks.
It was alive. The president never gave me any deadline.
All right, welcome back from the break. You're still watching Africa's finest breakfast show. And like I promised you, we'll be talking to a retired U.S. Army official who obviously is a Nigerian. His name is Bishop Johnson, who is joining us via Zoom. Good morning, Bishop Johnson. Nice to have you join us.
Yeah, good morning, Tony, and thank you for having me.
All right, let's look at the Nigerian President, Bola Ahmed Tinubu, who has already ordered an into the military drone strike that killed 85 civilians in Tudunbiri village, talking about the Igabi local government area in Kaduna State. This makes it the 14th, or if not the 15th, accidental killing by the Nigerian Army. What does this say? Looking at this sad occurrence, this is the 15th episode we're getting in the series of mistaken identity by the Nigerian Army.
Once again, Tony, thank you for having me on your program this morning. First and foremost, let me express my sincere condolences to the people of Kaduna State in general and the families of the victims in particular. This is a very tragic incident, very unwarranted. Now, having said that, I don't know for what duration of time, what time period we've had these 15, accidental killings. However, 15 accidental killings by our citizens, by our armed forces, is too many incidences, and something has to be done to ensure that these things don't continue. Now, the president, ordering for full investigation into the situation is the first and the right step to figure out exactly what happened, where the ball was dropped, and to make sure that such incidences do not occur again in the future. My fear and worry is after the investigation is conducted and concluded, if the findings will be made public, and if the findings are made public, whether the government will go ahead to put in measures to ensure that we don't have
disparity in terms of the number of people that were killed. Amnesty International's agent, in the person of Issa Sanusi, did allege that about 120 persons were killed, while from Neymar, talking about the, okay, I think we're having some network glitch, but my point of view is the fact that National Emergency Management Agency of Nigeria, NEMA, has said that 85 persons were killed. But Amnesty International, through its own officer, Issa Sanusi, says 120 villagers were killed. The question is, why is there always disparity in terms of the numbers of casualties? Bishop, are you still with us? All right, I think we're having some brief network glitch there. Okay, just to let you know that in February 2014, military aircraft dropped a bomb on Daglong in Borno State, killing 20 civilians, while in September 2022, we had another incident that occurred in Nake, where 7 persons were allegedly killed and 5 injured. In April 2019, we also had similar incident in Tangaram village, where 6 people were killed and 17 injured. In Buari also, that was we had 12 people who were killed, 20 people were also injured. In 2021, we had another similar incident that was in June, where in Jenu, where 2 people were allegedly killed due to mistaken identity. In 2022, in August specifically, that is in Kurebe, Shiroro, we had 8 people were also killed. So it tells you the number of incidences that has occurred. Fast forward backwards, I guess, in 2020 April, we had in Kurebe Shiroro also, the same place again, 6 people were killed, while in April of 2020, that's in Sako Toku, 17 people were killed. In 2021 in April, in Menok, 30 people were allegedly also killed, while in 2020 in July, that is in Kakuna, 1 person was killed, while 12 other persons were injured. In Yobe village, that's in 2021 in September, we had as much as 10 people were also killed with 20 injured. And in 2021 in September specifically, we had, that was in Kwata, Daban Mara, 20 people were also killed. While in 2014, when it all started in February, we had that in Daglon, we have 20 people were also killed. All right, thankfully enough, my producer says we've got Bishop back with us. Hello, Bishop. Nice to have you join us back. Can you hear me? Hello? Okay, let's look at Issa Sanusi, who is an official of the Amnesty International, said from their own on the ground assessment, 120 people were killed, but the National Emergency Agency, NEMA, reported just 85. Why do you think there's always this constant disparity in terms of casualty figures whenever things go wrong? All right, I think Bishop is finding it difficult to join us. Okay, so hopefully he'll be joining us in the course of the program. So like the statistics have shown, we've got 15 different episodes of this mistaken identity where the Nigerian army and military in total have killed Nigerians indiscriminately. Because in Iran, remember in January 2017 in Iran, where 100 people were allegedly killed due to mistaken identity. While in March in 2014 also, it did occur in the Kayamia village where 10 people were also killed. All right, so we've got 15 different episodes of this playing out, and it's a very sad commentary. And just like every other Nigerian and international community, we hope the Nigerian army will be more circumspect before carrying out all these attacks in terms of trying to defeat the Boko Haram insurgency. All right, those are some of the statistics that shows us the number of mistaken identity which the Nigerian army has already carried out. Already, we know that from reports reaching us, the Northern Elders are seeking for compensation from the Nigerian army. How well this will go down with the Nigerian army is left to be seen. But like the legal practitioner who spoke with us a few minutes ago, Ocha Emmanuel, has said, if the people of Tudunbiri are not able to get compensation willingly from the Nigerian army, they can sue the Nigerian army to be able to get what is due them. So we'll be keeping our fingers crossed to see how this plays out. Already the federal government and the presidency is already involved, and also we'll be willing to see if the findings of this investigation is made public, and probably the culprits are made to face the long arm of the law. We'll go for a very quick break. When we return from the break, the program continues. Stay with us.
Welcome to Global Morning.
The death toll from flooding.
Most time our politicians just bring in policies to, for sure.
Incidentally, we have several more stories.
The legislature was carefully crafted to
22.2% inflation rate as of April this year. What does that say about where we are as a country?
I think Nigeria has resorted to being resilient.
Before you call a police station, before they even leave, they'll take permission from
I don't think there's really anything on ground to improve.
the struggle with ASIS
The
strike.
Minister of Education volunteered and said, give me 2 weeks.
It was a lie. The president never gave me any deadline.
Welcome to Global Morning.
The death toll from flooding.
Most time our politicians just bring in policies to, for sure.
Incidentally, we have several more stories.
the legislature was carefully crafted to
22.2% inflation rate as of April this year. What does that say about where we are as a country?
I think Nigeria has resorted to being resilient.
Before you call a police station, before they even leave, they'll take.
Right, welcome back. Network doing us lots of good this morning. So we've got Bishop Johnson back online. Bishop, nice to have you join us back. So I was taking the Amnesty International official, Issa Sanusi, did say that after that incident occurred, based on body count, they had 120, but the National Emergency Agency, NEMA, did report 85. My question is, why is there always disparity when it comes to the number of casualties recorded and announced by the federal government?
Okay, I think this is one area that we're going to have to look hard and very deep in to ensure that we have accurate, accounts of how many casualties that are involved. Sometimes the collection of these kinds of information is not usually that very easy because most times when these things happen, the agencies that are supposed to do the counts are not usually there on ground to count them, and some other times too the local people interfere with the situation, and that leads to discrepancies. Those institutions can only count the bodies that they see on the ground, or add based on what credible eyewitnesses tell them. And so there's always going to be that kind of discrepancies because of those factors. So it's one area that we're going to have to work very much hard on to be able to get a more detailed and accurate information.
So you don't think it's deliberate when the numbers they seem to be doctored or reduced on the part of the government as a way of not allowing tempers flare? Do you think that's a strong reason why the numbers at times seem to be doctored or reduced?
Well, sometimes that could also be a factor because sometimes, government do not want to take responsibility for such high number of, accidental killings like that. So there may be some elements of politics or information control in order not to exacerbate the situation on ground. Nevertheless, whether it's 100 and something or 85, even if it's 85, that's way too many people to have died accidentally in that manner. And so in this particular instance, I can't tell you exactly what was the reason for the discrepancy in the body counts. But like I said earlier, most times these agencies and these bodies are not on ground to actually give detailed accounts, detailed, accurate information of the number of people. Most times before they get to the place, the situation has already been interfered by the local people. Some of the bodies may have been buried. And so you will rely on, what you see on ground and what information you think credible eyewitnesses will give to you to be able to come up with a number.
All right, let's look at the issue. This last episode has caused a lot of outrage among citizens and even the international community. Do you think this has further fueled the issue of Amnesty International always accusing of the Nigerian army or the Nigerian security forces of human rights abuses? And how far do you think this is going to dent the image?
Well, of course, this is a very bad news for Nigeria. We've had this similar incident take place when the Air Force mistakenly also bombed a community. What it says is that Nigeria has to do more. When this information came out and they said Nigerian army took responsibility for that bombing, for me, in the minute I was asking what was Nigerian army doing, flying an aircraft to the point of, accidentally bombing citizens. But when I read through the information, I discovered that the Nigerian army is flying drones. It's a drone from Nigerian army that accidentally bombed those people. Look, the way these things are done is that everybody has to stay within their lane. I don't think the Nigerian army should be flying drones. I think that should be left for the Air Force. Maybe they should have some kind of a joint operation where they have army presence, naval presence, even police presence, and Air Force presence. But the Air Force are the ones who are very trained and who have experience in flying aircraft. I think that the aircraft operators, the drone operators should be more of the Air Force rather than the Army. And so,
all right,
I think more has to be done.
Do you think there's also the issue of synergy? Because immediately this occurred, we had the Nigerian Air Force come out with a statement to say they were not the ones, operating that drone. And like you rightly pointed out, they should be the ones operating that drone rather than the Nigerian Army. Why do you think there's this clash of interest? You have the Nigerian Army flying drones rather than the Nigerian Air Force.
Well, for me, I think what it is that people are doing a whole. For me, what it takes is that everybody wants to be the one to say, "Look, I'm the one doing this, I'm the one doing that." I think that's why we are having these kind of problems. Because you see, I'm trying to do police work, police trying to do civil defense job, the Navy tries to do Air Force job because somebody wants to be doing something and be taking credit for it. And so there should be that policy and guideline where everybody stays within their lane. Nobody should be crossing over to somebody's own lane, especially when you don't have that much experience in that lane. Those drones ought to be flown by, it's a specially trained set of officers. Most of whom probably should be coming from the Air Force, since they're the ones with experience with aircraft.
Okay, in February, we had two U.S. Members of the House of Reps and Foreign Affairs Committee calling on Joe Biden to not allow the sale of $1 billion arms to Nigeria because of these human rights issues. Do you think this is going to further hurt our chances of getting more weapons from the international community, especially places like the U.S.?
Obviously, the U.S. is very, very, very keen to how you utilize whatever equipment that they give to you. They're very interested in a protection of civilian lives. You see what's going on, in Israel, between Israel and Hamas, even with the tight, relationship that the U.S. has with Israel. U.S. is obviously not happy with the number of civilian casualties that Israel is recorded in that military operation in Gaza. So this is a very serious concern to the United States. And of course, it's part of their law that any military or military unit that is not respecting human rights, they should not sell arms to them. As accidental as this may be, and as you've alluded to the fact, that these occurrences has been too often. And so, of course, it will be a factor. It will be a factor when the U.S. makes consideration on whether or not to supply arms to the Nigerian military, because they don't want this kind of accidental killings to continue to take place. Look, if without even concluding with the investigation, it's very obvious that it's not a technical problem, that is more or less like a human error, either a form of intelligence or those who are operating the weapon don't have that much expertise in operating them. And so it's looking more like a human error. And you shouldn't have human error that could lead to this many loss of innocent lives.
Okay, let's, like you rightly pointed, accidental, and you're talking about human error. What will the probe committee set up will be looking at? What indices will they be looking at when they are probing this and coming up with a way to probably, deal with the culprits, especially knowing that it's more of a human error issue?
Well, they need to be looking at, okay, one, they look at the intelligence that was received that led to that operation in the first place, how credible that information is, how credible the source of that intel is. That's one thing that needs to be looked at. They need to also look at the people that operated the drone operators. What kind of skills do they possess? How much training have they had? How long have they been on the job? And also, I am just talking as someone who is not within the armed forces. It could also be a weather condition problem. So I don't know definitively whether it's a human error or not. But I'm just, based on the peripheral information that I have, I'm just saying that there's likelihood that it could be human error. But at the end of the day, it may not be. I don't know what the weather condition in that area that day at that particular moment is. So weather could also be a factor that needs to be also looked at.
All right, let's look at the people of.
And then one more factor to there could also be technical factor, technical consideration. I don't know, maybe the drone malfunctioned, something of that nature. So it has to be like a very comprehensive and holistic investigation, if we are to be able to get to the right cause of the problem.
Okay, let's also look at the fact that the villagers accused the military of striking twice. Let's assume the first was a mistake. Why would they strike the second time?
Right. It's possible that such occurrences could have happened. If you have a faulty intel and you're told that, look, these are terrorists, and so there's no other counter intel to tell you immediately, look, these people are not terrorists, these are innocent citizens. So I see that happening. You struck the first time and you discover that there are still remnants of those terrorists. So you don't have any other option than to go back to, to strike again to ensure that all of those threats are neutralized. These things may be happening within a space of, short period of time. It may not be hours, for them to be able to relate the accurate information to the military as to who the identity of the actual people who are being attacked. So I see such thing happening because the accurate information has not gotten to the military. And even when the information gets to the military, they will still have to need some time to be able to verify whether the information that is being given to them, that these people are not terrorists, are indeed terrorists, are indeed not terrorists, because terrorists can also pass similar information that, look, these are innocent citizens that are being attacked. So I see such thing easily happening.
Okay, let's away from the strike. Are you worried or are you surprised that even when the drone strike occurred, there were no ground forces to move in? Wouldn't that have been the case where after an airstrike, the ground forces move in to clear up? And if that didn't happen, does it mean there's truly no synergy between the armed forces?
Well, this particular operation now, from what we heard, is from the army. I don't know the location of, the attack.
Okay.
Sometimes, yes, it's usually a routine, to have ground forces coming. Usually how this kind of operation is done is, look, there's a ground operation going on, and then they're calling for, close air support. Then the Air Force will now come in, with their, air support. But this particular one seems to be that it's one isolated incident in which the army got intelligence that, look, there is a suspected influx of terrorists in an area which they have said is terrorist infested. And so the easiest way is to have a very quick response to that threat. And so that was why they probably opted to go with drones, because they needed to quickly respond. Of course, it's easier to deploy drones to such areas, particularly if they are remote areas, than having to summon up the logistics and the manpower to go on ground to confront such a threat.
Okay, let's away from that. Let's look at the other issues surrounding compensation. We've got northern leaders already saying there should be compensation from the Nigerian army. For you, do you think the Nigerian army has the capacity to compensate these villagers or Nigerians who have been unjustly killed? And if they don't, would it be fair to sue the Nigerian army?
Well, Nigerian army as an institution is not, operating in isolation. It's part of the Nigerian government.
Okay.
So the army having the capacity to be able to compensate the families of the victims shouldn't even be an issue. It's a part of the government of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. What we need to be talking about is that the government of Nigeria ought to compensate the families of those victims, whether the funds comes from the military or comes from elsewhere. But the truth is that the families of those who have been killed, one way or the other, their pains needs to be ameliorated. People have lost fathers or mothers, and in some cases they could have lost children, and children could have lost both parents. And so there's a lot of pain. And even though whatever compensation that is paid is not going to restore these people to life again, but those who are living should have a way to be able to support themselves, at least for the time being. All
right, looking at the location of Tudunbiri in Igabi local government area of Kaduna State, Tudunbiri meaning hills where monkeys live. As a defense strategist, how would you suggest the Nigerian army fights this war, especially if they're going to be going back to that same location?
Well, I didn't know the meaning of the name of the place. Okay. I'm glad you just said it. And so that explains to me the reason why the army had to respond by air. Okay. Because it's much more easier to respond by air in those kind of terrain. And I didn't even know the meaning of the name of that community, but I've told you that it's probably in a remote area of the state.
Sure.
And that would have made it very difficult for them to be able to muster logistics and manpower to go by land. And now you're talking about, terrorists flowing into the area. And so the response has to be quick and immediate for you to be able to respond on time and respond effectively. And so in such terrain, It's usually much more easier to go by air than to go by land.
Okay. All right. Now, just to draw your experience while serving in the U.S. Army, are there similar occasions where you've had to be involved in, warfares in this kind of environment, or looking at fighting insurgency? Are there things you think the Nigerian Army needs to incorporate in this fight against insurgency that they are not doing right now, that you wish they can do?
Well, first and foremost, in the U.S., the military is prohibited from carrying out operation within the U.S. homeland. That is the job of internal security people. Most times when you see uniformed people in U.S. homeland, they are usually members of the National Guard or the reserves, who are citizen soldiers. And so some of them are police officers, some are firefighters, some are medical doctors. These are regular people that you see, and they're usually used mostly during times of emergencies like natural disasters such as hurricanes. So they don't operate. The U.S. active military forces don't operate in U.S. homeland. That is one point. Now another point is, yes, there are instances, U.S. has operated in similar terrain in Afghanistan. Afghanistan is a very hilly country. And so there are instances where they have operated in similar terrain. Now, all U.S. drones are flown. There's a unit in the U.S. military. It's a joint unit where they have been trained. The operators have this experience and the skills to fly these drones. Some of the drones that you see U.S. people fly in Afghanistan and all the other countries, the operators are not in Afghanistan, they are not in Iraq. They are somewhere in Nevada, underground, where they operate these drones from. That is their training. That is their calling. They have the skills, they have the experience. So maybe we should be looking at something like that, where we have a joint unit in which you're going to have the Air Force, the Army, maybe the police, since our military is involved in internal security, probably the civil defense, the Navy, all of them in a joint unit. Maybe drone or mine area vehicle unit, in which they will be given extensive training on how to operate this equipment. But the bottom line is that the Air Force needs to be there, and Air Force should be the lead agency in this, because they are the ones with the constitutional responsibility to protect Nigerian territory by air. And they have been doing that for decades. They have the experience, they have the technical know-how, more than all the other sister agencies. There shouldn't be this situation where they are falling over each other because one agency wants to do A, B, C, D, and gets credit and say, look, I am the one who did this. It's when they do these kind of things that it leads to tragic incidents as the one that we just had.
All right, let's focus on the culprits now, or the suspected culprits now. What will be the mindset of those who probably have been taken into custody now for whatever went wrong over the weekend? And how do you think we can achieve a very sincere probe where not the wrong officers will be found wanted in order just to save the face of others? How sincere do you expect this probe to be? And are you truly convinced that we're going to get the right officers court-martialed, or you think at the end it's just going to be a jamboree?
Well, when you say corporates, are you talking about...
No, we're talking about, those
who suspected terrorists?
No, we're talking about those who